Oh, that's good that there's some Star Wars news popping off.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if it actually sends me live. Yes, it does. Cool.
Do you need me to record my audio again?
Yeah,
Or
the Zoom should be fine.
cool.
I think. I'm gonna say yes, and then it's gonna be fine, or it's not gonna be fine. If you're watching us live now, hello. Okay. Oh, and then those animated shorts. Did you see those animated shorts?
The those like old ones that they did for like each era.
No, so they did ones for like Visatra, who's in Test of Courage, and then they did one for Avar Chris, where it's just like introducing her character.
Oh, I did not. I don't recall ever being aware of those. Maybe
They
I.
were released this week.
Oh,
They're
this
pretty cool.
week. Oh, okay. Hmm.
You're not. All right, you ready? Get rolling.
I am good to go.
Bring this forward. Probably record first. And 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Alliance, your home on the Geek Ultimate Alliance podcast network for any and all things Star Wars. I'm one of your hosts, Katie Yelstrap, Katie Rentschler. Oh, I always get in that rhythm. Bad. I'm Katie Rentschler, and with me today, Nathan couldn't make it, so joining me as my guest host for the day is Taylor Field. Taylor, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on, Katie.
Thanks for stepping up to the plate. We appreciate it. So, before we get into it, we have a little bit of podcast paperwork to do, and Nathan typically does this, so I'm going to try and do it as well as he does it. So we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance podcast network, where on Mondays you can find World's Finest True Believers, a comic book show. On Tuesdays you can find DC Alliance. On Wednesdays you can find Marvel Alliance. On Thursdays, which if you're listening to this on the podcast feeds, this is Star Wars Day or Slice of Films Day. On Fridays, you can find Superhero Discussions, a show about all things animated. And then Friday nights, you can typically find Super Civil Servants, which is kind of just a shoot the shit podcast, whatever you want to call it. We go over about anything and everything. And that drops in podcast feeds on Saturdays. On Saturdays and Sundays, you can find Weird Science Marvel and Weird Science DC, which are both comic book shows, going over anything new in the comic book realms for those specific brands. And then on every other Monday, you can find Ranger Alliance. So that's our show roundup. And then we do have a Patreon where $1 just helps keep the lasers firing around here. And then a $5 tier, which gets you ad-free episodes, exclusive episodes, and any early episodes that we may publish ahead of schedule. And this podcast does have ads, so I will try and give you a warning before we go into them, but just as a heads up in advance, we don't get to choose who the ads are from, nor how loud the ads are, nor how many times you hear the same ad in a row. So we do apologize in advance, but we appreciate any and all ad listening because it does help support the network. So, um, if you'd think I would know this by now, I say this every time, but whatever. The last thing on my list before we get into actual Star Wars stuff is if you don't mind leaving us a review. If you haven't already left us a review on your favorite podcatcher, we would appreciate that because that does help put the network into the feeds of other listeners, ones who may not follow us on social media or have an idea of us. So if you do that, we'd really appreciate it. I do take any and all constructive criticism. So with that, we will be talking spoilers about Light of the Jedi parts 2 and 3 today. So I know a lot of people don't read the Star Wars books. That's okay. We're here to explain it to you. But if you are about to read The Light of the Jedi and would like to avoid spoilers, this would be the perfect time to exit. We are going to talk a little bit about Star Wars news before we get into it. But you can always come back and listen. So definitely do that. It's a very good book in my opinion. So don't spoil yourself if you don't want to. But it's why Taylor and I are here to break down everything if you aren't going to read it. So with that, let's dive into it with our first round of Star Wars news. Before we get into that, I would just like to say harassment in the Star Wars universe is not cool. And Christina, who's the host of the Star Wars, the High Republic show, the bi-weekly show that's going to be premiering this week, is getting harassed tremendously because of some things she said in support of Black Lives Matter. And that's not okay. Harassment is not okay at all. Stop it. That's all I wanted to say. It's not cool.
I don't get why people are doing that. Just let people do what they're gonna do. Let people do what they do, and enjoy the things that they've created because these creators are creating some pretty cool things.
Yes. And I'm really excited for her show just to learn more about the High Republic and what she can provide and do the behind the scenes looks on it. Star Wars did actually post a tweet that says we don't support any bullying or harassment, and that they support Christina, and I'm fully behind that. They needed to say that a lot sooner on some other people who have been bullied when they came into the Star Wars universe. I mean, Daisy, Kelly, John, Daisy and Kelly both left social media because of Star Wars fans. So just if you're one of those people, feel free to not listen. I don't want you here. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Now for Star Wars news. On This Week in Star Wars, the host and associate editor of StarWars.com, Kristen Baver, announced that she has authored a book for Star Wars. It's called Skywalker, A Family at War, which will deal with 3 generations of the Skywalker family across 9 films and several other pieces of canon media. Kristen will explore not only the characters' lives, but also the key events linked to them that changed the Star Wars universe forever. From Shmi Skywalker to Ben Solo and the Scavenger Raid, this book has it all. Baver said, "I'm so thrilled to be able to tell the story of the Skywalkers through the lens of a biographer. From the outset, I knew I wanted to treat the family as if they were real people with compassion and empathy while simultaneously crafting an unflinching portrait of their accomplishments and their failures. These characters are larger than life, yet so fragile and unmistakably human, and that comes into focus when you study how their actions impact the greater galaxy and their family." So, I'm excited for this. My only critique of the way this was put out is they put out the cover, which is gorgeous, by Matt. It's by Matt Ferguson, who did the 40th anniversary poster for The Empire Strikes Back. The cover only has Darth Vader, Luke, and Leia. And when you're covering the whole Skywalker family, wouldn't you think you're gonna include other people in the Skywalker family on the cover?
I would think you would. I definitely can understand. Oh, that is a pretty nice cover. I really like it. But yeah, it definitely. You're talking the Skywalker family. You gotta have Shmi and Anakin, going all the way down to, I would say, Rey and Ben Solo
Yeah,
for sure. It's it just looks like this is like a tribute to A New Hope. I mean, they even put the Death
yeah.
Star in the background, which is fitting for Darth Vader, but
Mm-hmm.
at
It
least,
said
oh, sorry,
it says the piece is greatly inspired by the original art that accompanied A New Hope when it first hit theaters. So that
that's
makes
fair.
sense. But at the same time, I'm like,
Hmm.
that. So this is the biography of the original trilogy Skywalkers.
Hmm.
Is now what you're saying? Like,
There is, oh, which book? Okay, it's one of the Thrawn novels, of course, and they had that very cool design where you had, it was the Comic Con. I think
the
it was
Thrawn
the Comic.
Alliance is one.
Yeah, the Throne Alliance is one. Thanks for clarifying that. I should have said that. So yeah, you had like Anakin and Thrawn, and that was the Comic Con version, and then Darth Vader and Thrawn as the regular
Mhm.
retail version. So I've seen obviously the images of like them combined, and they should. I would have liked something like that where it shows like Vader and Anakin kind of like side by side, and then it would be cool to see like Ben Solo and Kylo Ren side by side, like just show those two
Yeah.
sides like going down. Just my thought though.
Yeah, something to incorporate all trilogies
Hmm.
and not just the original trilogy, I would think.
Hmm.
I'm really excited for Kristen. She's a passionate Star Wars person. I mean, she's an associate editor and a host for This Week on Star Wars. So I mean I'm gonna read it. We'll see what happens though.
Hmm. So are you saying it's written like someone was to sit down and do interviews with all these different Star Wars villains or and characters, or is it done so much as someone just off to the sidelines observing the events of the galaxy unfolding and observing these characters?
I would say it's definitely more like a traditional biography is what it sounds like.
Hmm.
So it's like a nonfiction book in the fiction realm of Star Wars,
Hmm. Okay.
which is kind of cool because like they've published like the Jedi texts or like versions of what they could be, which
Hmm.
are nonfiction texts in the realm of Star Wars. So this is like what a character would read
Hmm.
in the Star Wars universe. So I don't know. I think it sounds cool. And definitely like I've always said it, Skywalkers are my favorite characters. So I definitely a book I'll pick up. So
Awesome.
what about you? Would you pick this up?
Oh, yes, I certainly would. I'm a sucker for, I have all my Star Wars visual encyclopedia dictionaries for the new trilogy, and I have like one that covers like the old school stuff that was like pre-Disney, and
Mm-hmm.
I love those kind of books so much. It just goes into the details, and it's not that I do this at parties when you talk Star Wars, just whip out your Star Wars encyclopedias and start talking facts.
No, I haven't done much into like picking up like the visual dictionaries or anything. Like I've definitely picked up the fiction books, but I've not done much of that. I was this close to picking up uh the visual dictionary or encyclopedia for the Mandalorian because I was like,
Ooh.
ooh, Baby Yoda pictures.
Hmm.
It's a coffee table book if I've ever seen one.
That does that cover season 1 and 2, or
No, it's just season one.
just season 1? Oh, okay.
So the next thing on the list is an interview with Jason Isaacs. He did this interview with Collider. And he discussed the possibility of returning to the Grand Inquisitor role in the first season of Rebels. But doing it in live action, which is a trend for what Star Wars has picked up recently. There's a small rumor that Lars Mikkelsen, who voices Thrawn in Rebels, has agreed to return for the live action role. But very small rumor. We don't know exactly. I mean the place who published it isn't like very well known, so that's why I'm saying rumor and it's not being like its own topic here. But you, Taylor, said Lars Mikkelsen on like episode 3 of Star Wars Lights. You said Lars Mikkelsen should return to the role. So Props to
Yeah.
you.
I definitely would appreciate him returning to the role 110%. I've seen so many people on social media like doing these imagery or images and talking about, oh, Robert Downey Jr. cast as Grand Admiral Thrawn. I'm thinking, no, don't do that. Please don't do that. And even all these other like fan casts that they're all talking about, like Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
I I can see it kind of, but I don't want it. I would much rather, yeah, Lars Mikkelsen or I'm trying to remember some of those other picks that you and Nathan all were calling out at the time when we did that episode.
I don't even remember like what my picks were. I think Benedict would definitely be one of my tops.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a Benedict stan. Like, I love Benedict though. And as Robert Downey Jr., I liked his Sherlock Holmes portrayal, which is who I think Thrawn like embodies in the Star Wars universe. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is a parallel that I would draw. But I don't see Robert Downey Jr. pulling off Thrawn's sarcastic portrayal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like Thrawn's much more of a smartass than his Sherlock Holmes was. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't, as much as I love Robert Downey Jr., please pull him in for something else in Star Wars. Like,
He could make like a great, I mean, him as a Jedi would be very interesting, but he would make honestly like a great pirate or a Hondo Anaka. That was something I'd like.
yeah, Hondo would be a good pick for him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not Hondo specifically, but like a Hondo.
A
Yes.
Hondo, yeah.
Anyways, Jason Isaacs. So he said, and I'm quoting this from the Star Wars Newsnet like interview summary. He said, "I'm open to anything. It's always about the script. I don't want to just turn up so that I can take some photographs and go to conventions. I'd like to play parts. The Inquisitor was a great part when I played it, and if the Inquisitor was a great part again, I'd be up for it. I'm not sure I've got the patience of Doug Jones, who plays Saru in Discovery, who is the creature in the shape of water and stuff. I don't know how many hours I'd like to spend in prosthetics. But yeah, Katie had a very good time. I know Katie, and I'll say I've loved being part of the Star Wars world. They've invited me in, although I've only ever been an animated character before." So, it's possible, and I've said this kind of when we've talked about Obi-Wan Kenobi on this show, it's possible to see an Inquisitor pop up in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, or even see an Inquisitor referenced in the Andor show, both of which would be ample opportunity for Jason to come in, because he dies at the end of season 1 of Rebels. Spoiler alert. I should have said that first. But the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and the Andor show both take place before then, so it would be a good time for him. So what do you think?
I agree. You know, if they're gonna bring him back, this is the opportunity to do so. I could see it more in possibly the Kenobi series. Well, actually, no. I could see it in the Kenobi series, but I could see it more in the Andor series. And I say that because if you have an Inquisitor to face off against Obi-Wan, I feel like it's going to end the same way it ended for Maul.
Yeah.
Spoilers. So I definitely could see it being in the Andor series, where I doubt there's going to be any Jedi, but maybe he just comes doing his stuff and he's trying to sneak in and do some espionage, and then maybe we don't even see the Grand Inquisitor fight. Maybe it's just a small like cameo or sorts. Well, again, they wouldn't, that would counteract his statement. He doesn't want to spend so much time in like hair and makeup and cosmetics and all that jazz. So, but I'm going to stick with it being in the Andor series that we see him. I just feel like that's more the nitty gritty, and Cassian's going to be exposed to that type of environment of the Empire, where it's all destruction and control. Just to me makes more sense for the Inquisitor to appear somewhere there.
Yeah, I think so too, especially and we don't know much about the Andor plot line or anything, but what could take place is like they're finding more Jedi that have survived. I mean, we've got Cal Kestis, we've got Ahsoka, not a Jedi, but y'all get the point. So there could be other Jedi out there that Andor might track down. I mean, we've seen them try and stick more toward when they're in that same timeline, they're trying to stick towards more comfortable items, and tracking a Jedi for Andor, like someone who would bring hope to the galaxy as like the representation that they had for the Republic would be an awesome tie-in to get a Grand Inquisitor if that's the goal. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
So but yes, I would agree. I do think there's going to be an Inquisitor in the Obi-Wan show, but I don't think it's going to be him.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an Inquisitor in mind?
So I think so. They've said that there's like 2 or 3 female focused roles that they're casting for,
Mm-hmm.
and I think one of those is going to be like a sister or something. Somebody who's charged with hunting Obi-Wan down. We know Darth Vader is going to appear, or Anakin in some shape or form. Hayden Christensen's returning is what that means. But we don't exactly know the whole plot line of it. So they could decide to send a sister after him. And maybe it's a Jedi from the Order. I mean, we know a Padawan was turned based on the Fallen Order game. One of the Jedi Padawans was turned into a sister. So it could be someone that Obi-Wan would easily recognize and try to turn away from the Inquisitor role, try to turn her back light side. So
that'd be pretty cool to see. Just like Obi-Wan like sense it was an old Padawan and try to do something about it. I'm trying to recall. We haven't seen all the Inquisitors yet. I think like I know, yeah, we had the game that showed off like 3 of them in Fallen Order. I believe it was 3.
Yeah.
And then we have, was there like 5 in Rebels? I think we got to encounter.
But I think like we saw like up to the 7th sister.
Yeah.
Or something, and we never like we haven't seen all of them. I know that.
Isn't there like 11? Or am I getting that confused?
I don't know if we ever had like an exact number.
Yeah. Either way, like I definitely would love to see some familiar or some new Inquisitors show up and try to face Obi-Wan. I definitely feel like it would not go very well for them. But I'm curious, like, how would Vader do that? Would like an Inquisitor just like get word that there's a Jedi on Tatooine or a Jedi somewhere if Obi-Wan leaves Tatooine and goes to face him? Or do you think Vader would send someone to go deal with Obi-Wan? Which I feel like he wouldn't.
I feel like he wouldn't. I don't. I feel like Hayden Christensen's role is more of an overshadow. Like he's not going to actually hunt down Obi-Wan, or if he's going to, then it's not going to be a place on Tatooine. Because I feel like if he knew that Obi-Wan was on Tatooine, he would have gone and killed Obi-Wan or tried to kill Obi-Wan a long time ago and then found Luke. So I think Hayden's more of a flashback interaction with maybe bits and pieces of Darth Vader here or there. So I think they're just gonna say, oh, there's a Force presence on Tatooine, and then something's gonna happen there. Or either that, or that's a perfect opportunity. We know Ahsoka has been rumored for more than one show. That she's going to cross over into lots of places. And I feel like her interacting with Obi-Wan is a good opportunity, especially to see Rosario take on a different area of Ahsoka's timeline. So that could be another opportunity where she says, hey, I'm building the Fulcrum network. Will you come help me? And then Obi-Wan takes off and goes, okay, he's going to be fine. He's a little kid who will be fine. And then he gets lost on this adventure, basically, is what I'm thinking is going to happen.
That'd be really cool. That's an interaction I didn't realize that I definitely need, is a live action interaction of Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. That'd be so good.
Well, I mean, like, Ahsoka was on set when George Lucas was there. Like, Rosario Dawson was there for, like the pictures and, like, getting the costume right. And so apparently in the George Lucas photo where he's holding Grogu, she's, like, several feet outside the camera that way. Like she's just right off the end of the picture.
Mhm.
It's like, so
Jeez.
we never know what they'll do.
Exactly. Who's just off to the side secretly.
Yeah. So the last bit of news we have, well, it's kind of several. So the guy who plays the pilot in Rogue One, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he just like got several award nominations for a movie. Do you know who I'm talking about?
That plays the pilot in Rogue One.
Yeah, the pilot who is sent off by Mads Mikkelsen's character to like go say.
Oh, Bodhi Rook.
Yes.
But his actor's name, I can't recall.
We're gonna Google this. Bodhi Rook. That's not helpful. Come on, Wikipedia. I need some help here. Riz Ahmed. I'm sorry, Riz.
Yes.
Not that you listen to this at all, but Riz Ahmed. And Alan Tudyk, who plays K2SO in Rogue One, have both said they're not going to make appearances in the Andor show. Riz Ahmed not being there makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It was their first interaction in Rogue One. Like, they had no idea who each other were. I'm not surprised by that at all. Alan Tudyk, on the other hand, I was really surprised by that, especially because at the Star Wars Celebration panel for the Andor announcement, you had Diego Luna and Alan Tudyk there. And so Alan Tudyk says he won't be in Andor's first season. However, he does know that he's got a future with the character in other seasons. They're shooting it right now. I'm not in it. But if it stays on the air, stories keep getting told, I'll end up in there. I'm going to be in the show. It's just that the story that Tony Gilroy is telling doesn't involve K2SO until later on. I can't be too specific, but I can definitely say that I'm not going to be in the first season. In addition, he joked he might have a problem doing the motion capture for his character if the second season takes too long to film, given that he's getting older and it's harder to do motion capture on stilts. Because K2SO is 7 feet tall. Mm-hmm. So that is difficult. I'll give him that. So he said, I'm not one of those guys that says somebody else do the motion capture and I'll voice it later. I'll have to do the motion capture. And I turned 50 in March. So I hope they get to it soon because I'm not going to be on stilts in like 5 years. I'm not doing it.
Interesting.
Star Wars Newsnet goes on to say it indicates that unlike Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is currently planned as a limited series, that makes sense. There's only so much time with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And honestly, I'd rather see stories told about other characters. I'm fine with like this limited series because we always knew that there was plans for a movie at some point or another. But I like the limited series deal. I don't want to see multiple seasons. Like, give me new characters. Andor will have multiple seasons, which is why I've said it should have been titled Fulcrum instead of Andor, because then you could say, oh, I'm going to go tell a story about Ahsoka now. Oh, I'm going to go tell a story about another Fulcrum, the blonde guy from Rebels. I don't know. Like, it's a perfect opportunity. Call me, Disney. Like, I swear. So, yeah, that's about it. They're filming Andor now. So, so that means we've got Mandalorian season 3, Andor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and possibly one of the newer shows as well, which I'm thinking is like Rangers of the New Republic or the Ahsoka show coming in 2022. So we'll have a pack 2022 for Star Wars.
And that's going to be alternating with like Marvel content. So like it's going to be like the bee's knees.
Yes.
I think that's very interesting. Sorry, his name Stanley. Why am I dropping the ball? It's so early. Stanley of K2SO. Stanley.
Alan Tudyk?
Yes. Oh, why am I thinking Stanley? Where did Stanley come from? Oh my gosh.
In all fairness, it's 7:30 in the morning where Taylor's at. So
Alan Tudyk. Okay, I think that yeah, it was a little odd for him to just show up at the panel and then for him to announce that he's not in season one. But again, it makes sense that he's not in the first season. They're going to focus on Cassian and his story. I do, I do believe it, but I'm also inclined to say I take it with a grain of salt because with the Mandalorian, they said so many things and they just it didn't matter. Like you had Sasha Banks who played that one Mandalorian character.
mhm.
She's like, yeah, I'm not in any more episodes, and sure
See,
enough,
I I don't think I think everyone took it as she's not in any more episodes, but in the interview, I went back and looked at it, and her phrasing doesn't ever say I like she's basically like I can only talk about this episode. I can't talk about anything else.
oh, it's all in the wording. Okay,
It's
that's
the
interesting.
phrasing. It's the
Yeah.
phrasing. So
Okay. Well, then maybe yeah, maybe then maybe he's telling the truth 110%, and I'm reading too much into it.
yeah. I'm just hoping we'll see him back for some more Doom Patrol.
Doom Patrol. Yes, there's what 2 seasons of that show.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I've not
He's only in the
watched it.
first season.
Oh, he's only in the first season?
Yes. But the first season's my favorite.
Is he doing mocap on stilts in that show as well?
No. So I think he's got more opportunity to come back for that one. So
Oh yeah.
so I think that's about it we have for Star Wars news. So we're gonna take an ad break and come back. And 3, 2, 1. And we're back. Thanks for listening or watching if you're watching on YouTube for the podcast magic. Do appreciate that. Before we get into the Light of the Jedi, I want to throw this in because I know I'm going to forget at the end after we get into discussion. I am doing an interview with the author of I Love You. I know that's later today, so not on this episode. We're going to release it as a separate episode from this one as well. So if you're interested, it's a really cute book. The author's name is Amy Richow. I'm gonna learn how to pronounce that. I swear. I've got to go look. Oh, because I'm gonna butcher that. I know I'm gonna butcher that. But Amy has graciously agreed to come on and talk about it. Talk about some of her work with 365starwars.com. So yeah, this was a great little book. It's all about relationships in Star Wars, and how maybe you can find like a parallel to a relationship here. But that will probably be the episode directly after this one. So please go listen to that one. I'm really excited about this interview, so go do it.
So does the book cover exclusively only like the romantic relationships, so like Han, Leia, and Padme and Anakin, or is it covering like the crazy relationships like between Ben and Han and
So they have true love, family, friends. It's complicated and enduring love as the sections in here.
I feel like it's complicated. It like covers all of those different ranges of topics.
So it's complicated. They have Ahsoka and Anakin, with Choose Your Own Path, Unexpected Connection with Rey and Ben Solo. You Can't Save Everyone with Obi-Wan and Anakin. Be Open to Unlikely Alliances, which is Callus and Zeb on Rebels. That's the Fulcrum's name that I was thinking of, Callus. Accept that people change with Kira and Han, and avoid destructive relationships with
The Death Star there.
with Krennic and the Death Star. It's the cutest book, I swear. Like, I loved every minute of reading that. So, but yeah, let's get into the Light of the Jedi. I bought the fancy edition.
I was gonna say that doesn't look like the standard retail cover. That looks like the special one.
No, and it's signed by Charles Soule. So
Oh,
This is I paid the $50 for this and the socks.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
So parts 2. Let's go with part 2 first. So part 2 is called The Paths. And we start out on Coruscant with Lena So, which before we get into it, I did want to say Nathan, while he's not here with us today, did want to share that Lena So really pisses him off. And that he does not like the garbage at the end about like the whole compromise and like supporting other people, like we are the Republic. I'll let him like tell it specifically on the next episode that he's on, because he's probably gonna get really mad at me for interpreting his words. But he basically hated the whole entire teaching people compromise, and even if you're weak together, I'll cover for your weaknesses or whatever the hell that was. He really hated that so much that it soured him on the book so much that he's not buying a hard copy now.
Oh my goodness.
Nathan will tell us.
Sorry, is that from the audiobook that he dived into, or so he didn't read it?
Yeah, he read the audiobook.
Okay.
We both did the audiobook, and then I bought the hard copy. So part 2. What did you think about this book, first of all? Because I've already kind of shared my thoughts on the book. So.
Well, yeah, quickly over with part 1. Part 1, if it wasn't in audiobook form, I feel like I would have really struggled, because part 1 just wasn't really grabbing me and pulling me in. I felt like the very beginning, it jumped through so many different things, which in retrospect now, I understand it's setting up a whole new area of Star Wars, and it's a lot of pressure. This author had to really dive into it. And again, as part 1 progressed and we kind of got introduced to all the different characters and storylines, part 2 is where it really got exciting for me. I was really, really happy with how things were picking up. And I remember telling Travis, because Travis is like, oh, chapter 8, like, oh my gosh, like things better pick up. I was like, oh, don't worry, Travis, I'm on chapter 30 and it's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, part 2, I should clarify, is this a non-spoilers?
This is spoilers.
This is spoilers.
So we can go ahead and dive on into it.
Okay. Yeah, part 2 was just it dived full onto like Martian Row, and why am I forgetting the two Jedi's name? There is the Master and the Apprentice that were on the outpost.
Bell Zedifer and Logan Greatstorm.
Yes, I love those two characters. I think Bell is probably my favorite character of this this new generation. I love the dynamic between, again, the Master and Apprentice. I love that kind of stuff. But again, their dynamic, and Loden Greatstorm. Yeah, he's such an awesome character. the audiobook was so interesting because it gave him this Russian accent. Another character, like, yeah, well, shout outs to the voice actor, because they really did a lot of interesting voices. But
Mark Thompson is great.
That's who voiced. Does he voice other characters, like other audiobooks as well?
Yeah, he does the Thrawn audiobooks.
Oh, okay. I've never listened to Thrawn audiobooks. They're
very good.
Okay, interesting. But yeah, part 2 is great. Again, I love Loden. I love Bell so very much. And that part 2 is when it really kind of shed light on Martian Rowe, because was he in part 1? I can't recall.
No, he's not.
Okay. Yeah, so he enters in part 2, and he just becomes like such a main character as soon as we enter into like part 3, and just a force to reckon with. Now I'm trying to just recall the events that happened with the moon of Iriadu. Was that in part 2 or part 3?
The moon of Iriadu. I think that's the end of part 2. I'm in the midst of rereading, but I've only gotten partway through part 1 again.
Okay. So. I will say that part was extremely, and I apologize in this morbid way, but it was really funny. I'm sorry all those people had that happen on the moon, but just when they were making their threats and making their demands, and you have the Oh my gosh, I just keep drawing a blank on all these names. Oh, the
Yeah.
people are gonna be like, "Did you even read the book, Taylor?"
In his defense, he read it like so fast so he could do the geek first review. So
Uh, God, it's on the tip of the Nihil. Oh my
the
gosh,
Nihil.
I should be ashamed of
You should have
myself.
said the villains.
Yes, the Nihil. So when they were making their demands, and they were about to shoot the third, um, they had a special term for what those were. They not encounters. They were not instances. Um, but
Like
they're
the different levels of the Nihil.
no, it was a term for when the pieces of the debris from the ship were breaking off out of hyperspace. I can't remember the term that they called it, but anyway, so they were basically the third encounter. I'm just gonna say for now, or debris breaking out. They were lining up to take their shot at it, and they were so high on like death sticks and just partying, and they totally missed their shot, and billions died. But I just thought like, oh my gosh, like they got the 50 billion credits, and then you have, I can't remember that chap's name either. Maybe it was like
Yep.
Kale or not. It's definitely not Cal, but the one Nihil leader, and he's just thinking, oh, I could just take like my 30 million credits and give them 20 and just say like just go into hiding or something. He's just planning out his escape or whatever. But he was an interesting character too. So many interesting characters.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was Mari Santeca.
Mm.
With so the Santekas were first introduced in the Force Awakens. The white-haired guy giving what's his name?
Odameron.
Poe the piece to the map to find Luke Skywalker. Uh, that is, I can't remember his name, but he's a Santeca. Uh, and so it turns out that the Santecas were a wealthy family because they made their way charting hyperspace lanes. Um, so the hyperspace that we know and love in Star Wars was at some point charted one way or another. And the charting was all done by the Santecas. And it turns out it was because they had a relative who could do something like the second sight people or the second sight kids in the Chiss Ascendancy. So she could see paths in hyperspace and chart them all out and kind of take the ship through them and everything. So at this point in the book, she's, would you say like, I would say she's close to like 130
Yeah,
because
she's definitely triple digits.
yeah, because Marchion's like, even with the equipment he has, like she's not gonna survive much longer. Um, so I would say she's definitely triple digits because I mean, in the Star Wars universe, I feel like the average human would be able to live into triple digits normally or get close to it. And
Hmm.
so now she's struggling. And this is 200 years before the Phantom Menace, so roughly 300 years before the Force Awakens at this point.
Goodness
So
me.
I like, what did you think about that? Like,
Probably like definitely not a pretty sight. This poor elderly woman hooked up, just going in and out of thinking, like being angry at Marchion, being happy with him, thinking it's like her or he's like her father or
mm-hmm.
son, like all these different instances. And that's just God, I would never want to be in that scenario. Oof. No, no, no. So this poor old lady again, she's doing her work, and he gets so much information from her. And again, the audiobook really strained how this woman was just so on like the verge of death. I feel like she's just working so hard, but it's just does her family, did they lose her? Just one day they wake up like, oh, where did she go? She's just gone. I wonder what that story dynamic is.
Yeah, because like And Martian, he goes into it. I've got the chapter actually pulled up, which has like the majority of the interactions with her. He's like, Mari found the roads between the roads via some mix of instinct and unconscious mathematical analysis that operated on a level she couldn't explain. Martian had asked her, of course, many times, as had his father and his grandmother. So at some point, she was kidnapped, I would say.
Over 3 generations.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's just really interesting, kind of the response, and like Martian is one of the most interesting villains, I think, in the way that he just operates. And this is kind of skipping ahead, but like, so he shocks Mari every time he doesn't get an answer he wants, or if she's not paying any attention to him, and the doctor's like freaking out, like, if you want her to survive, stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but then also when you get to the end of it with Loden Greatstorm and that monologue kind of at the end where Loden's like, you're never gonna win, and Martian's like, nope, this was designed specifically to imprison Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of these people dies, I'm just gonna go replace him with somebody else. And there's something there. What happened?
Something
I
that
just
pissed
want
him
to
off.
know.
Yeah, he's a very interesting villain, and I do appreciate that, how he went to that depth of using that jail cell to just kind of deter Loden Greatstorm. But he's such an interesting villain. He is 100 steps ahead, and I feel like he's to me, and how I interpret him, he's like a mix between like a Thrawn and a Palpatine with some aspects, where he's very calculated. Like, again, where he's, I can't remember that Nihil leader's name, the one who bribed Iriadu. No, he bribed Iriadu, and then his fleet was the one stuck in the part 3. Cassiv, yes. So I enjoy their dynamic, but I like how he was playing games with Cassiv, like, hey, I'm gonna give you coordinates, get you out of there, and the coordinates just sent his troops smashing into other ships.
But I liked the introduction of, and I mean, so obviously this is before the Light of the Jedi, but the fact that they're taking these ships and they're just saying, oh yeah, we're just gonna jump through and kind of see what happens. And this is actually like recreating the Last Jedi's like ship going through another ship.
The Haldo maneuver, isn't that what they call it?
Yes. It's no longer the Haldo maneuver, because like, honestly, it provides a lot of sense for it, because she could have heard of it and said, oh, okay, you know what, I'm gonna try this and we're gonna see if it works. Like, I liked that inclusion. It didn't have to be included, because I thought Haldo's maneuver still made sense, but I liked it. What confuses me is, why would you put a way for your ship to be remote controlled with hyperspace when people are so afraid of hyperspace right now? So why would you put something that can be controlled outside of your ship? And how does that work? Because I want to know.
Do you mean with Haldo's maneuver, or
no? So like the ships that kept jumping through, Martian had coordinates being transmitted, and he was doing the jumps.
Oh, I didn't realize he was doing. I thought they were all thinking they were getting out of there, and they were just putting it in and killing themselves.
No.
Oh, that's horribly gruesome.
So because Cassiv says, Cassiv says something along the lines of, he shouldn't have allowed these path engines to be put on his ships.
Goodness me.
So,
maybe it was a way to like salvage their ships. If something happens to the crew, they could get their ships out of there and keep their ships, maybe. Or maybe it was just, it does make sense to one part, like where you have like the head, like brain controlling everything, and obviously their religion is based on the eye, so you have them all just like taking the directions and information from the eye and just working with that. So I mean, it would make sense to just have the eye input the information and just kind of direct our ship and control it.
Yeah.
He's definitely that whole dynamic with Kassav, though. Yeah, very unfortunate how he's just like stringing him along to the point even where he had Kassav's head honchos on his side, and they have that like stalemate on even on his like bridge. So he's definitely a villain that was not that he was in people's like heads and getting control of them that way, but even with Lana D, like he puts them in these situations where they have to obey, and they don't even have time to necessarily think about rising up against him. They again, Kassav and Lana D did have those brief instances, but they I guess they were too afraid to act on it. Kassav not so much was afraid; he just got distracted with the war.
Yeah. I don't really know this book. Number one, I was really excited to see the Jedi come back into Star Wars literature. That's always been, I think it's been one of my biggest missing parts of what we currently have in canon. Is we don't ever get like the, oh, I'm a Jedi and here's what I'm doing kind of thing. Because that's what I loved about Star Wars Legends was, okay, we were getting a lot of perspectives from the actual Jedi. And it wasn't just deep down. Like, I feel like we've gotten a lot of good books. Like The Lost Star by Claudia Gray, one of my favorite canon books. It's perfect Romeo and Juliet romance, like in and of itself. But I'm like, we could have used another Jedi book. And that's why I was so happy about this one, is we get a lot of good perspectives from Jedi in this book. And I love that. Like Avar Chris, I wish she had more characterization, but I feel like we also get some good characterization of other Jedi, of like the younger generation of Jedi, and that's mainly what I'm looking for. So,
yeah, they really fleshed out how these different Jedi have, again, different perspectives, especially the council members, which they get into. But I love that the Jedi also have very unique, and I associate this with Twilight, for the fact that like the vampires all have unique abilities, and these Jedi all have unique abilities. Like you have Avar Chris that has the ability to like stand back and bridge Jedi together, which I think is very, very, very awesome. So I think like these Jedi, and I love to compare this era to the prequel era, where you have these Jedi at their all-time height with these powers and what they're capable of and their beliefs and their perspectives. And you have the Jedi in the Clone Wars. I do again go back into that jail cell scene where it's just having such an effect on Loden because it's like a mental jail. I feel like that wouldn't affect the Jedi in the Clone Wars era as much, maybe to a certain degree, because we did get one episode, but they had Obi-Wan being worn down to the point where he couldn't do anything to help the slaves, and that was what was sort of breaking him. Whereas I feel like this is just they're torturing the slaves. Well, no, I can't. That's the same thing. They did the same thing. I can't really break those two apart because they're both mental states. It's brilliant.
yeah, and I think that more leads to Obi-Wan being portrayed as kind of a more traditional Jedi. I mean, that's what he's given as in Master and Apprentice, which is a Jedi book, but it's not my favorite Jedi book. It was not a very good Jedi book. I realized that after saying we haven't gotten any Jedi book. Yes, Master and Apprentice is a Jedi book, but I hated that book. So not Claudia Gray's best work, in my opinion. How did you feel about Master and Apprentice? Am I offending you?
I really enjoyed it. Travis enjoyed it too. And Travis is like, yeah, Katie just despises this book. Like, oh no.
I do. Which sucks, but it's, yeah. Well, not the topic of the story. But I'll have you back and we can discuss Master and Apprentice again. But like, I can definitely see what you're saying, but Obi-Wan definitely seems more like the traditional Jedi. And like, so fun fact, I don't know if you looked at the comic at all for this, like the Marvel.
I didn't get around to it. I need to.
So I'm gonna spoil one bit for you. There is a bit in there, and it's Yoda and the other Grand Master of the Jedi Order. And Avar Chris refers to them as the Grand Masters of the Jedi Order. So there was two, and Obi-Wan was one of, or Obi-Wan, Yoda was
Obi-Wan.
one of them.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's not that old. We just got done talking about how humans are struggling living that long. So I'm like, they said Yoda was part of the council and that he was on a sabbatical, which also pissed Nathan off extraordinarily. I'm like,
Yeah, they wrote him out of there pretty quick.
which I'm like, it makes sense though, because I mean,
Yeah.
like, if you live for 100 years, I mean, they go into it. This book has to where like they talk about the older Jedi kind of going off and like retiring to an extent, doing archival search or like finding new ways to talk to the Force. But Yoda's 700 years old at this point. Don't you think he wants a little bit of a break? Like, so to me, it made sense. What?
700 years of teaching and instruction. I mean, you've definitely earned some like sabbatical and some time off. I mean, if like, what is it, like every 7 years you earn 1 year away or something like that, I think, for sabbatical. I think that's how it works. So, I mean,
Is that what it does in the Jedi Order? Has that been
I'm
addressed before?
that's that's like the real life kind of scenario. Now in Star Wars, if we just took that same and that like equivalency over and just did the math, I can imagine Yoda has a lot of time off. But again, him being out of the story is good because it's the same thing where Force Awakens, if you have Luke Skywalker in there from the beginning, everything's going to be focused on him. And I guarantee, like, if you have Yoda in this from the start, everyone's going to be focused on Yoda. It's going to turn into a Yoda book, and we don't need that. As much as I want it, we don't need that.
I just keep thinking of the panel they did before this book came out. It was the January 4th panel, and Charles got asked about Yoda, or Yoda came up in somehow, shape, or form, and Charles goes, yeah, Yoda, whatever. Like, yeah, I can clearly see that in your book, man. That's a bad thing. Again, Taylor and I are in agreement. Yes, that would have distracted from things.
I'm glad that you mentioned Yoda, actually, because there were two other Jedi. Now, I know Oppo Rancis was in this book as well, which was super, super cool because he's seen in The Phantom Menace. And oh my goodness, why can't I recall the other? Yariel Poof, that's the other one. He was also in Phantom Menace, and he was also in the Council in this book. And you get to see those characters speak in this book and their perspectives, which I think is super fascinating. And how they view war, because when they're discussing getting involved with the Republic and the fleet that's going to deal with like the Nihil, well, I guess I won't get too much of that because part 3, but again, their perspectives. It's so interesting to see them have dialogue and engage and where they stand on war, because you have the Jedi and the Clone Wars era where it's like begun the Clone Wars has like, I'm going to get the army of clones, Yoda says. And here they're having a very serious debate whether they should be a part of it or not. And I think that's we didn't get enough of that with Jedi, and I think that's a very serious topic that is very much connected to Jedi of all sorts. Is should they participate in these large scale conflicts of the galaxy? I personally think they shouldn't. I think it breaks their tradition, their code, and they need to not be acting like heroes, but in this case, like this, they need to be deliverers of hope. And in this book, in parts 1 and 2 especially, I felt like there were moments of hope when the family was abducted and you have Bell and Loden, and that again, the audiobook kicks the score in and they're chasing with their speeders, and you can just, from the family's perspective, they see like lightsabers in the distance coming, and it's like hope. Or when Loden deflects the shot from the Nihil ship and he can't do it again, but Bell just, he doesn't even think about it. He does the same stance that Loden did and is going to try and do what his master did. And the ship's coming around. And then what happens? Another Jedi swoops in using the Force somehow to control 2 fighters and just saves the day. Like, it's just, those moments are so good in this book of hope.
And I think that's what's interesting, especially like when you look at kind of the finer details where like in part 1, the Jedi all come in formal attire. And when you look at it in the Phantom Menace, they've all got the exact same robes on. Like they go meet the Chancellor in traditional Jedi robes. Like, what changes? Like, they've clearly got like a mission where it's like they're actual knights of the older republic. And in some cases you've got warrior gear, in some cases you've got your finery, and it's just like, this is so interesting, and I'm like, I want to know more.
I think it's
um
it's it's very reflective of like our real like this society in a sense where you have like go back like a generation or two and you have people that they take their hats off when they enter the house. They wear very formal clothes for certain things. And now, I can wear shorts in the wintertime and sandals. It doesn't even matter.
mhm.
And I feel like again that's the sense. You make a very good point with them being very much dressing for the occasion.
So it's it's interesting, and like Avar wears like this jeweled headband, and
Hmm.
I'm like, and they specifically refer to her lightsaber as like an ornament, or like the jewel on the hilt as like a matter of stability, but also for ornamental purposes. And I'm like, this is not how the Jedi Order works.
Hmm.
I like,
They're they're lightsabers. So I really like how to use their starfighters. They actually have to plug their lightsaber in to
yeah,
activate it, so no one else can actually use their fighters. I think that's a really cool safety precaution.
yeah. Which, and it makes sense because while it's a safety precaution from other people using their ships, it's also like a prevention
Hmm.
method from like other people getting hurt necessarily, because like when they go into the details on the ship, they say like they've got the bare minimum shields, they don't have a lot of padding, like a normal person probably wouldn't be able to like keep up.
Hmm.
So, and could all almost get hurt,
Hmm.
I would think, if they drove the ship.
100%. They're still on just the topic of lightsabers. There was another Jedi, and I believe she died. She was with the Trandoshan Jedi, I think in part three. But I just want to talk about her lightsaber
Jorah Mully.
because I believe so. Yeah, I'm gonna say yes. I can't confirm though. Her lightsaber. They give a brief description of it where it was from a Sith, a Sith's uh,
Yeah, she cleaned it as a matter of um
is a Sith
she
pike,
cleaned
I
it as a
believe.
matter of research.
Yeah, yeah, very cool concept. Yeah, I love the idea of them mentioning like a Sith pike or whatever that weapon uh was properly called. But yeah, she took that. Yeah, she did for research, and then she ends up just like liking the crystal and using it. So she just has a white blade. Again, so many mentions of different colored blades. It was so fabulous. Really, really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I've got Wikipedia pulled up. I'm like, Jorah Mali's lightsaber. The lightsaber of Togruta Jedi Master Jorah Mali was a white-bladed weapon with a cylindrical golden hilt, sporting curved platinum handguards which curve back towards the hilt, looking somewhat like wings. The weapon which Molly used to activate the onboard weapon system of the Jedi Vector she piloted was powered by a kyber crystal Molly had taken from an ancient Sith light spear.
Light
Molly
spear,
had
yes.
purified the crystal of the rage and pain instilled in it by its original owner, mainly to see how such a thing was done out of intellectual curiosity, but found herself bound tightly to it afterwards, eventually mounting it in her primary weapon. So,
Yeah, I think that's awesome because we again the mention of that and also we got mentions of the Sith Jedi War. So
yeah.
they're dabbling in some of this pre High Republic stuff.
Well, and they also talk about like the Mandalorians and like how
Hmm.
they had calmed down. So like the Jedi Mandalorian wars also kind of get mentioned here,
Hmm.
uh, which is so intriguing to see. So where do you think Martian Rowe comes from? Just kind of knowing what you know from like previous Jedi lore or previous Star Wars lore. Like I don't know how much you were involved in Legends, but you seem to know like a little bit about Knights of the Old Republic or something.
Um, yeah, I don't know because like going in and reading this, I almost like in retrospect, I almost thought like I feel like Marshawn Rowe is not his real name.
Yeah, I don't think it's his real name.
A part of me kind of is inclined to say like, what if he is a Tekka and maybe I gave him access to the elderly woman, but I don't really have any solid idea of who he is, or I guess like compared to like the Legends stories, who he could be. Um
So I don't think he's a Santeca because he's a male humanoid. So he's
mhm.
not human.
Right. Oh gosh, I totally forgot. Yeah, he is an alien. Yes. I'm so glad that they put out images to go with these characters.
Yes, that was very nice. I liked that. I liked that a lot.
Who do you think he is in Legends, or like relevant to?
So I think it could be a combination of some stuff. Like you've got like the Legends of the Sith, which is about the planet of the Sith. So he could have escaped in that realm from the planet of the Sith and kind of tried to find his way back. Because the planet of the Sith didn't always have um not everyone on the planet was a Force user, for instance. So he could have found a way to escape there with his father, because his father's mainly the one that's mentioned, though his grandmother is also there too, but mainly his connection with his father is what's there. Um,
The planet of the
he's
Sith. Are you referring to like Morban, or because we know three, right? There's Exegol, Morban, which is also Korriban,
I know
and
I'm talking mainly about the Legends one.
oh,
I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's like literally called like the Legends of the Sith, and it's got like
okay.
8 short stories in it. Um, I'm interested to see though if he could be like a spinoff of like the Yuzon Vong, for instance, where the Jedi had a conflict that hasn't maybe been introduced yet, um, and they were like accidentally wiped out or something. Uh, because he seems to have a vendetta against the Jedi when he comes into the conversation with Loden, in that sense. But he also seems like he could be a Force user
Hmm.
and has just been hiding it.
Hmm.
Because I mean, he can throw those vibro stars with insane accuracy, cutting off Cassiv's hand and everything.
You make a good
Um,
point with the Yuuzhan Vong. I always felt like the Grisks were kind of more Yuuzhan Vongy, but when the Nihil were introduced, I definitely was getting vibes.
because it's like they want to scare people and they have like these masks that they wear and
Hmm.
everything. Um, and I just think, while I think some people think the Yuzon Vong are funny in a sense, I think the Yuzon Vong had a great characteristic where they came in and literally decimated everything.
Hmm.
And so I think it's still a good opportunity to bring them into canon because I thought they were great villains. So,
Hmm.
um, but that's kind of where my head lies. Definitely humanoid. I don't think he's Chiss, even though the image that he has on Wikipedia, like he's got like the blue skin of the Chiss. Um, so he could be, but I doubt it. Um, because I feel like red eyes would have been mentioned.
Well,
Um,
you're not totally off here, because I mean, what if his mask is symbolic? I mean, he's got one big red eye on there.
yeah.
You know, if he's a Chiss, I mean, oh yes, please. I love Chiss.
I'm like, I'm trying to. Where is this chapter? That's not the chapter I'm looking for. I literally just had it because he takes off his mask at the end. Um, and yeah, so I literally just found it. Martian Road lifted his hands to his head and removed his mask. He stood there looking out at the thousands of faces. His tool, his weapon, his army. We are all the Nihil. And it's never mentioned that like the eyes or like any characteristics to his face. And I feel like that's something that you would mention. I don't know.
I think you're right. Like whatever so much information about him is being obscured, obviously for later books, but I love that. I love that idea now that he could be a chess. I'm running with that full swing.
Mhm.
I'm all for it.
It's a possibility. I would think, and it could. I mean, it could lead into like chaos rising and the greater good. Because I mean, we know there's a storm that's hunting kind of the chiss in that sense, and so it could be that those intertwine in some shape or form.
Well, the Nihil like to bring the storm, as they so often say in this book.
Tempest, storm, clouds, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's really all like I kind of have like we go through the I parts 2 and 3 really just part 2 really introduces you to the Nihil, I think.
Mhm.
Um and then part 3 is kind of that resolution. All ends to books are, of course. Um but we get to it and the Republic thinks that they've destroyed the Nihil at the end. And in all actuality, they've only destroyed one Tempest. So one section of the Nihil. And Marcion at the end, when he takes off his helmet, goes, we're going to spread in the greater galaxy. We're going to go into the core worlds now because they've mainly been sticking towards the outer rim. So there's obviously more that's going to occur. I mean, we know now that there's 3 phases to the High Republic publishing initiative. So, what do you think is going to happen next?
Um, yeah, it's tough to predict. I mean, we have obviously Marshall and Roe with Loden, and when he found out Loden's identity, he expressed great interest in that. He's very happy with the Jedi that he has, and he was just hoping for any old Jedi. But he got Loden Greatstorm. So there's a dynamic there. He has pre-existing knowledge with Loden. He has wiped out 1/3 of his Nihil fleet. Still two massive forces. Like at this
Mhm.
point, he outnumbers the Republic fleet like 2-1.
Yeah,
So then
because
there
the
were.
Republic doesn't have an army of its own. I mean, we knew that in the Phantom Menace. It kind of uses armies from other worlds to
Mm-hmm,
help.
mm-hmm. Yeah, they all contribute. Which again, I love that concept. Um, so he's definitely up to something, and now that he's got like a clean slate. He's got hundreds and hundreds of routes planned, and he's still got the old lady Santeca hooked up to the machines dishing out new routes, and the world is, the galaxy is basically at his fingertips with what he could do. The only one who knows his secret is Lana D, I believe. She figured it out what he'd planned with Cassiv, and so she's the only one who
Mm-hmm.
knows the truth. So I wonder if there's a chance she could defect. Obviously, Martian Rowe explains that he still needs her for certain things or whatever, but I wonder if there's a chance like she breaks apart in the future from him or something goes awry. So
Yeah. Um, I actually got an advanced reader copy of Into the Dark, Claudia Gray's book. So I'm going to be reading that after this. I specifically have held off because I wanted to make sure I didn't bring any of that into this. But that's what we're going to be covering next. Is Claudia Gray's Into the Dark book. It's a young adult by Disney publishing group. Uh, so I'm excited for that. I haven't loved a Claudia Gray book since The Lost Stars, so I'm hoping that I can get into this one. Uh, and we'll see where that takes us. And then the next one after that is coming in late June, early July, somewhere in that timeline. Um, did you read A Test of Courage? I know Travis was like, it's a middle grade book. I'm not reading it. Did you read it?
I'm inclined to. But no, I don't believe I did. No.
I love that book. I think as far as what I've read now, A Test of Courage is my number one, the High Republic book.
Really?
Yes.
We'll have to give it a read. What was it? The one coming out February 2nd.
Into the Dark.
Into the Dark. So that is not in relation to Light of the Jedi in any shape or form, is it? Or is it its own story?
So it tells the same story, but what they said in the panel, what Michael Siglain said, was that you could basically take any area that you were interested in. So if you wanted to read all the middle grade books, it would all tell a story, and it would all be kind of cohesive. All the young adult books, it would all be cohesive. Adult, all cohesive. Comic, whatever. In terms of if you wanted to read things to complement, he said they all complement each other and they all tell one cohesive story.
Okay.
So I'm inclined to say, okay, right now I'm going to get the middle grade, the young adult, and the adult. If I get in the Marvel comic, I get in the Marvel comic. So
I have that one on my Audible already. Like I pre-ordered it, so I figure like I'm in it.
Yeah. I figure at the very least, once we get through it all, I'm going to go back and read all of it. But if I get to the point where I'm like, oh, there's too much, I'm going to stick to young adults and the adults. And then I'll go back and read everything else. So
cool.
But I'm excited. The next adult book is by Cavan Scott, who wrote Dooku Jedi Lost. The audio drama. I'm so excited for it. I'm here for it. I'm ready. So
Dooku Jedi Lost that's funny because that's actually one I really want to read. I didn't want to dive into the audiobook, but I've seen it on hardcover now on shelves.
Yep.
So I need to get it.
So disclaimer, that's actually a script. So it's not like a full like book, but they did print it because people were like, I'd really love to be able to read this, but I'm deaf. So, but the audio drama, very good audio drama. So, I'm really excited to see what Cavan does in a book form, because I know he's wrote comics and I know he's wrote other books, but I'm really excited to see him do this. So
I think that comic book writers and many animated showrunners should be doing more live action and novels. And I say this because Dave Filoni and Mandalorian is very good.
It's very good, but I think he could do less. I think he needs to stay focused. So
fair enough.
That's my opinion. And I'm sticking to it. But I think that's it, really. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about? I know we kind of went all over the place. Talked about things we loved.
No, I think that's everything that I could think on. And the last thing I'll touch upon is I really do enjoy the Jedi characters, and I love, again, those moments of hope when they rally together and they use the Force to push that debris of that ship of Tabana gas out of the trajectory of the sun. So that was like, there's Star Wars, there's always a planet that's going to get like annihilated or explode. That's classic Star Wars. So again, they did it in this book. Yeah. I
really love the Jedi. I'm excited to see more of them. Lena So is mad to me. I'm like, go away and just give me Jedi. But I can see her points of the matter, and trying to make sure. I mean, it's a galaxy of planets. You want to stay united as a government. So, I can see what Nathan's saying, but I'm also like, it's one part. It's like a chapter. She's really annoying. It's not going to change my opinion on Star Wars. So, Taylor, tell us where they can find you.
Yes, all you fantastic Star Wars fans out there, you can find me on Twitter at Taylor the Field, I think is my handle. Or you can just You can find me on Geekverse. I'm over there. And yeah, you can find me away in the search bar, geekverse.ca and Geekverse on Facebook and Geekversecast on Twitter.
Yes. And I will link all those in the description box below because I have all that done already because Taylor joined me on last week's episode of Slice of Film where we delved into the Lost World, Jurassic Park 2. So we did that. So if you're interested in that episode, go scroll back like 7-8 episodes. You'll find it, I promise. So you can find me on the Twitter at Slice of Katie. That is new handle, so make sure you get it right. This show you can find on Twitter at Star Wars Alliance without the A in the wars. And of course, like I said, and I'm actually going to remember, so go listen to the episode right after this. I'm going to be talking to Amy, the author of Star Wars I Love You, I Know, Lessons in Love and Friendship. We've got a great interview planned ahead of us. I have not done it yet, so I'm hoping it's a great interview. But yes, go listen to that next, please. I'm really excited. So yeah, happy 2 episodes of Star Wars Alliance week. I don't know. That's all I have though. So I want to wish everyone a happy day or night, whatever time of day you're listening or watching. Oh, Nathan was in the chat.
Hey, Nathan.
Hi, Nathan. He said part 3 is the setup for this 4-year endeavor that they are doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably. He said, great call, Taylor. I think she will turn. I don't know what that was in reference to.
I don't remember what that's in reference
I'm
to.
sorry, Nathan. He said, I thought Kevin Scott came next. Yes, we got to that. Claudia Gray is writing the young adult book. And then Kevin Scott is writing the next adult book. It is a written script talking about Dooku Jedi Lost. Would have been better if Clone Wars actors did the voices for the audio drama, but what can you do?
Ooh.
And then he said, she sucks, LOL. Probably in reference to Lena. So, Nathan, we missed you today. But we're going to get out of here. So, have a great day or night, Dark Taylor. Your lighting all of a sudden got really crappy.
Room.
Have a good day or night, y'all. Whatever time of day you're listening or watching. And we'll see y'all next time. May the Force be with you.
Bye-bye.